Hello and welcome. You're watching us here on a very special edition of Consumption Corner. We have with us an assortment of guests who will discuss the D2C universe, and this as KPMG in association with Quora has come out with an interesting report which has some insights on the consumer space based on user activity on Quora itself, and the findings are quite telling. They've said that there have been a fair amount of searches for beauty products, largely for long-term solutions as against quick fix. In health and packaged food, green tea still rules the roost, and as far as pet food is concerned, we have dog-related content, which is still 80% of the overall universe, which is 20% being with cat. So to mull a little more over the findings of this report and talk a lot more about the D2C space at large, we have Pallab Roy, who's the partner at KPMG India, Gurmit Singh, who's the general manager APAC and MEA at Quora, Varun Sadana, who's the founder of Supertails, and Vikas D Nahar, founder of Happilo Snacks. You've been seeing those ads where the mascot throws dry fruit at unsuspecting people out there as well. Thanks a lot, gentlemen, for joining in. Let's start with the authors of the report, Pallab as well as Gurmit. Pallab, the one thing that stood out in this report was the surge in digital content and perhaps consumption as a whole because of the pandemic. Now we're post-pandemic. Just wanted to understand, how have those trends panned out? Has growth slowed down and the new normal is still above the pre-pandemic days?
Thank you for having me on the show. In terms of the pandemic, it was really an inflection point for e-commerce and D2C. And what you see in terms of your numbers and in terms of your growth, possibly if you look at data sources published by CI and others, you will see we have about 119 million consumers, or 8% of our retail businesses from e-commerce. While in the pandemic, if you also see some of the research that we did as KPMG on a separate research report, it showed that e-commerce went up to almost about 17% during the pandemic. So obviously there is some balancing post-pandemic, because obviously during the pandemic times, the other channels were not available to consumers. Now that they are, I think there is some rebalancing. However, this is a pure tectonic shift in terms of consumer commerce, which means our consumers are exhibiting truly omni-channel behavior. And that is what is probably here to stay in terms of how consumers are seeking brands, seeking products, engaging with the products, and ultimately buying them. And that is what we also see as a clear reference in our Quora reports as well. Also, you will see the participation of tier 2, tier 3 cities is pretty high. And this trend is only here to stay. So from that lens, I would say more than just looking at e-com as a channel, consumer commerce is here to stay. And it's a true omni-channel consumer that we are looking at.
Right. Gurmit, your thoughts on this space? Percentage of Quora users who said that will go ahead and make purchases. For hairstyling, that was 81%, whereas for shampoo, it was 40%. Just trying to understand, what explains this divergence, because both of them are applied to the same part of the body.
So, we have different kind of readers who are there and their different interests. What is more important is the macro scenario, what has happened post-pandemic. So I would like to quote the Group M TYNY report, which has come out post the pandemic. And that says that, advertisers are spending more monies on digital now than on television. So consumption habits, which have changed during the pandemic, some of them are kind of still evolving right now. And therefore, you have different people at different stages of life, and therefore their interests are kind of, different at different points of time. So what we do is Quora shares insights with all our clients. We share with them what is happening periodically, and that allows them to kind of pick up insights and therefore tailor make their strategies accordingly. So that's the unique thing which is there, which we share with our clients.
All right, let's now get in the D2C players themselves. Varun from Supertails and Vikas from Happilo as well. Varun, there was this big surge in pet care, and that's likely to be one of those leading industries going forward as a category. It's emerging quite a bit. Post-pandemic, what have the divergent trends been? And just wanted to understand, how has pet care purchase behavior been, from a GT standpoint, from an MT standpoint, and now e-commerce?
The kind of things that we're seeing in the last 2-3 years, the biggest question, at least during COVID, was, is it going to stay, right? And what we have seen is, last year is a good indicator of that, and so is the current year, that the growth is not stopping, right? And the growth actually is happening across all segments, largely food. But to your question on GT and MT versus e-commerce, well, this category, the largest growth has been on e-commerce and quick commerce to some extent. But that doesn't mean that, like Gurmit also mentioned, the offline has been an integral part of the growth as well. All of us can see so many pet care, shops kind of increasing around the corner. So it's been an all-round growth for pet care, largely because one, it's one of the segments which has increased very quickly, and second, the premiumization is slowly happening, and the need for more pet products, largely pet food, is absolutely there, and it will keep on increasing. Is how we see it.
Right, and Vikas, your product category is one of the most interesting ones. It's dry fruit. It's not something that people are unfamiliar with. It isn't something that people haven't been consuming or talking about the benefits of. But you have put a branded, organized twist to the same. Just trying to understand, how do you navigate through this? Because I don't have data, but anecdotal evidence suggests that a lot of it is still brought from offline channels, and a lot of it is still unorganized. How do you plan to work around that?
See, regarding this unorganized market and regarding dry fruit as an industry, when we started, there was no branded presence in India. So we are leading brands today, trying to structure the dry fruit market per se. So when we started around 2016, the acceptance of packaged dry fruit was not so high. We had to create a lot of innovation in terms of product, in terms of how do we increase the shelf life, how do you give the same product consistently every time when the consumer opens the pack, and how can it make it more aspirational. During the COVID time, I think as business would say, people started eating healthy. The junk foods went down, and health foods went up, and people consider Happilo as a very healthy brand selling dry fruit and based products. So we are actually able to raise our revenues 4x during the COVID era.
All right, and what's the run rate that you're currently growing at?
Run rate, you can say it's around 500.
All right, 500 crores. Interesting there. So, and that brings me back to some of the findings of the report itself. 57% of Quora users actually indicated their interest in food and drinks. While we're talking about dry fruits, we're talking about various categories. The most amount of curiosity was generated still by green tea. Green tea had the significant share of everyone's curiosity and purchase decisions, etc. Oatmeal and cereals were next in line, but a far distance. How do you view, Gurmit, these trends, and do you see these sustaining and staying online, or at some point these guys will have to go offline as well?
So these trends, Mangalam, are a lot to do, what happened during the pandemic. During the pandemic, people were doing a lot of search on the virus, and therefore, related things. And a lot of related things were, health related. So therefore, if you see, things like cereals, oatmeal, green tea, these are things that kind of, spiked during the pandemic. And those trends kind of remain even now. Pre-pandemic, the media was more traditional in nature. And like I said, now that, digital has gone ahead of television and other traditional media, people are more and more, clients are more and more trying to reach out to the consumer where he is spending more of his time. So wherever he's researching, wherever he is kind of, reading about it, and that's where I think all the attention is. And that's where health, foods, and related are getting a huge amount of uplift.
All right, gentlemen, stay on. We have a lot more to discuss with you. We'll just take a short break, come back and continue this conversation. We've set the stage. Now we will discuss a lot more about the future. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching us here on Consumption Corner. We're discussing trends in the D2C space. Pallab Roy and Gurmit Singh, along with Varun Sadana and Vikas D Nahar, are with us. Pallab, just wanted to understand your thoughts on the way legacy brands are now approaching this. Because at the start of the pandemic, of course, the D2C brands were much ahead in the online game, so they adapted much faster. But now that legacy brands have also caught on with these trends, and at the same time this interspersed with a funding winter for all these new players. So, it's sort of this intersection where legacy brands have found their footing and the others are struggling right now because of lack of funds or maybe lack of sustained growth as one saw during the pandemic. Where does this battle stand at right now, and what according to you is the future?
So I think that if you see the legacy brands, as you rightly said, they've not stood still. If you see within the Quora report, the Quora KPMG report that we published, you will see that there is a lot of curiosity, recommendation, and engagement around products, services, and brands. So when the legacy brands notice that, they know that there is a set of online consumer that they can go after, and they've started to build up their entire online business. And this is being done in different ways. On one side, you will see that they've started to create their own D2C capabilities, their own e-commerce and marketplace capabilities. And very nicely, they've started to leapfrog some of the entire distribution value chain and reach as much as possible and digitize as much as possible to the last leg, which is the consumer. So that's happening on one side. On the other side, you would have noticed that most large legacy brands would have acquired some of the new age or D2C brands or some of the new age brands. So that also has added to their capability. And the third is a lot of them are looking at the startup ecosystem and looking at specific challenges that they have in terms of leapfrogging the distribution, reaching the consumer, creating a personalized experience, literally bug breaking in terms of understanding and personalizing at a consumer level rather than broad basing it at a region area level. Those are the aspects that they're working on as well. So three very, very specific initiatives where they're working on. I think coming back to your original question, where we stand and what will really happen. If I just look at the trends, and I mentioned that consumer commerce is now here to stay. And if you look at consumer commerce, what that would necessitate for any organization, whether they are a new age D2C brand or they are a legacy brand, is to be able to operate in an omni-channel format. And that is where I think things will keep moving towards. More personalization, looking at data and information at the consumer cut level will keep on improving. And that is where you will see that this will actually fructify. For new age companies, of course, it will mean thinking about managing their cost better, thinking about innovating at speed, sustaining quality, and finally also setting up on their offline.
All right, and that question to Varun as well. Varun, we had Nestle incorporate Purina into their own business now. A lot of large players are coming around and seeing the potential that we're seeing in pet care. At the same time, for a lot of the platforms who were specialized in pet care are now facing the heat from acceptability of pet care products in general and modern trade stores as well. How do you compete with that?
I think this is largely a phase, Mangalam. Pet care is very, very nascent in the country. We are talking about largely the first wave of, petification of the country where, during COVID, a lot of people kept pets. So these were people who always wanted to keep pets, but kind of, fastened their purchase because of COVID. The next phase, which has already started, is because people, there are a lot of people who wanted to keep pets but needed a reason, and the reason they got was from everybody else, right? Because a lot of other people started keeping pets. So this will go on for the next 2 to 3 years. Then there will be the last phase where people who like pets but were not keeping pets largely because who'll manage, right? They're waiting for the ecosystem to get built, right? So now, while a lot of all these brands, large brands, are looking at this as a decently long-term opportunity, right? They're not looking at this in solving this for the next 1 or 2 years. Mars is investing a lot into the country. Nestle has come with Purina. and they are also investing a lot in the country because all of them believe it's not like a 1 or 2 year game. It's going to be a decade or 2 decade game, and we've seen that in case of China and Brazil, where the pet care economy kind of increased almost 15 to 20x from 2010 to 2020. Very similar stuff should happen in the country, and everybody wants to bank on that as large brands.
Right. A similar question to you, Vikas. As first movers, you all do get the advantage of being the first brand. But at the same time, at the end of the day, what is being sold is a commodity. It is almonds, it is cashews, it is dry fruit. Basically, no two brands could differ in the core taste of the product. Tatas have looked at this space and they are now entering GT. You have a lot of the other large legacy players too looking at this space. How do you compete with their distribution reach? How do you compete with their ability to source at lower costs and sell to a much larger audience? And once that happens, how do you specialize your product so that customer loyalty remains?
No, see, if you the category itself, I always believe food for that matter might be any food, might be a batter, might be water, might be pet food or anything. Food can always be created. It is the brand perception, how you create with the consumer is what matters, and how you can consistently deliver the promise on. If you talk about the product, our products are highly differentiated in terms of the way we roast them, right? If you see a lot of products available in the market are fried or with oil, our products actually come with the promise with added pink salt and with a lot of goodness. And we have invested a lot in terms of our capacities and our infrastructure. The entire roasting, entire process happens untouched by hand, and one of the highest in terms of hygiene, in terms of process, in terms of systems what we have set up. And we also imported a lot of processing lines from US and other European countries where the roasting and the flavoring technology is very, very superficial. It's highly superior in what's available in the market. So I always believe that in terms of product, we should always differentiate and try to create new products. We've invested highly in the R&D as well. If you see the products what we have launched recently is like a dry fruit burfi, a dry fruit bar, an almond brittle, and a pistachio bar and things like that. So we have actually gone the extent. In fact, we recently launched something called as a Kaju Katli spread, which actually won Sial Paris Innovation Award. Which actually what Nutella did with hazelnut, we actually tried to do with cashews.
Okay, that's interesting.
Not about selling almond cashews, it's about selling innovative products which can be conveniently carried across, can be consumed at multiple a.m. breakfast, 11 a.m. hunger break, or a 4 p.m. Tea break, or even 8 p.m. With your friends. So we want to cover all aspects of life, but want to eat them in a healthier choice. We don't want to go with the potato chips or something like that. We want to give them healthier options, which can be based on dry fruits.
All right, you are now making my appetite, a little. You're whetting my appetite with the kind of products that you're talking about. I'll hold you on to this, but that will be off air. Final round of questions to all of you. Gurmit, what other metrics do you think brands should be using to improve their performance a little more?
So I think the most important thing, a lot of because of the funding winter which you talked about, and also there is a lot of stress on profitability. There is some amount of funding crunch which is there. Therefore, a lot of brands tend to kind of go organic and they want to put out content and kind of get consumers through that. That's not helping kind of achieve scale. So my suggestion to all the brands is that you need to have content which you need to kind of distribute better, because D2C gives you, like we saw, an amazing ability to kind of custom make products, to launch innovative products, and also it is very, very important to reach out to audiences on a larger scale so that this entire business can get a second fillip now. So that's my suggestion to all the brands who are listening.
All right, and we have a couple of brands listening here as well. Varun, what kind of metrics do you think you use which no other company uses, and that's held you in good stead?
Actually, to be very honest, I think there is only one metric that is the most important, and that is repeat, right? And this, at least when we think about pet care as a category, it's largely about how do you get the customer back, right? All our metrics actually, so that is the playbook, right? And I don't think we use any fancy created metrics. We kind of very, very some of these metrics which kind of keep coming and going. We have to go back to the fundamentals, and Gurmeet also mentioned EBITDA is important, and one of the a very good founder actually wrote on Twitter. All CEOs today are chief EBITDA officers. So yeah, so I think at the end of the day, I don't think we need to create metrics. I think we need to follow the metrics which are already there and just follow it well. That's the game.
Right. The other one which goes is that sales are vanity, profit is sanity, and cash flow is reality. Vikas, metrics that you use?
We believe in a lot of providing convenience to the customer and personalize the experience.
Okay.
Because whenever customer comes to your website, the most important, as Sadana was saying, that the retention and the repeat is most important. And how do you make it happen? You have to touch the customer in multiple phases of life. It might be on your own D2C website. We have actually launched our own retail stores, the own EBOs across 3-4 tier 1 cities in India. So what we want to do is we want to give that same experience whenever a customer comes to an offline store or comes to a website, and we know what are the customer choices. So how can we actually cross-sell him with new products? How can we engage into sampling? We know his customer preferences. We understand the consumption pattern over a period of time, and we know, is he buying once in 15 days, once in 30 days? How can we actually do it better? How can we make it more convenient for him? How can you introduce subscriptions where he doesn't have to actually come to the website or buy or come to the store? How can you provide more convenience, and how can you make it a more personalized environment for him? So that end of the day, customer is not only coming for a product, he's coming for the entire gamut of the experience the brand which provides. So I firmly believe own website gives you that platform to do sampling, to understand the consumer better, to get a lot of data, because as the KPMG report also says, the consumption of data has increased a lot.
All right. Thanks a lot, gentlemen, for joining in for this insightful discussion. We wrap up on this edition of Consumption Corner, and thank you so much for watching.